Hello dear students, let us discuss the ophthalmology questions asked in this INI-CET exam. The questions were very conceptual. Two questions I would say were very off the mark. They were not expected from anybody who could answer logically. It was something which was on more of a statement questions. What we had seen in the past was there were conceptual questions. So instead of going on the traditional path, they had asked something which were factual questions. Okay. So let us discuss whatever had been asked and let us see how many you could have got right. The first question was a middle-aged female presents with pain on eye movement. RAPD is present and normal optic disc on frontal examination. So pain on eye movement, RAPD. Some students have said that there was a history of decreased vision also. Okay. So if there was a history of decreased vision with pain on eye movement, with RAPD, with optic nerve appearing normal, that is neither the patient sees anything nor the doctor sees anything. This was something which we have done in our class. It is characteristically retrobulbar neuritis. It is not papilledema because there is no loss of vision. Okay, in papilledema we have done. It is papilledema. So optic nerve is edematous. It is not papilledema. Okay, and vision is also not affected. And definitely there is no inflammation. It is not itis, so there is no pain also. Central retinal artery occlusion, we know, presents with a cherry red spot. Okay, again, it will not be a normal appearing retina. They will have to give you a history of cherry red spot. Okay, and definitely it is not inflammation, so there is not going to be any pain also. So these two options were obviously out. Okay, now we're left with AION, anterior ischemic optic neuropathy and retrobulbar neuritis. Anterior ischemic optic neuropathy is basically ischemia. So if you had this word also, you would have noticed that is not going to be a normal looking optic nerve. It has to be a disc pallor. Or in the initial stages, there is inflammation, there is edema because of the ischemia. So this is something which I had done in our class. This is the screenshot from the class where I told you that in a retrobulbar neuritis, the optic nerve will appear to be normal. So see, the pain is a feature which is not present in papilledema. It is not there in papilledema. It is there in the optic neuritis, pain or ocular movements. Vision is going to be normal in papilledema. Vision is affected, and your visual field disc swelling. Okay, it is there. Mild disc swelling is there in the neuritis element. Okay, where there is the papillitis. In retrobulbar neuritis, characteristically, neither the patient sees anything nor the doctor sees anything. And in ischemic optic neuropathy, the patient presents a rapid onset of unilateral vision loss. The level of visual acuity is variable. Altitudinal field effect is there, and RAPD is present, but see, it is not an optic nerve normal appearance. It is not a normal nerve. So that is also out. Okay. So answer is retrobulbar neuritis. That was something which you have easily done. This was a very simple question. Now, next was what was the amplitude of accommodation in a 7-year-old child? Now, this is a very factual question. Okay, you are expected to answer a 7-year-old child accommodation. Okay, so we know that we have done accommodation in our class. Something that we have done. Accommodation is basically ability to focus for near, and child has a very high accommodation. So if you could have just answered this by the simple fact that there were choices like 5, 7 and 14, you can just asked and marked 14D. One choice is very surprising, was just D. Many students have told me that there was an option of just D. There was no numerical value given. So I think this was a misprint by them also. It is something which is a mistake. Even in a factual question, they have made a mistake. Just imagine. Some are saying that there is an option of 20D. Some are saying that there is an option of 10D. Okay. So if we go into the logic, how we find the answer is by the Hofstadter formula, which says that on average, it is 18.5 minus 0.3 into the age. So if you take this 0.3 into age is 7 years. This becomes 2.1. So if you subtract from 18.5, the 2.5. The answer comes out to be 16.4. Okay, so that is also not in the option. So the correct answer would have been 14D. If you could just have used some imagination of marking this question, or best would have been to leave this answer. That would have been the best option available. Okay. Next was, what are the components of trabecular outflow pathway? So trabecular outflow pathway we have done. This is your conventional pathway. That is the conventional pathway. What was the other pathway? The alternate pathway. What is the name of the alternate pathway? This is the uveoscleral pathway. The prostaglandins acts on the uveoscleral route. So uveoscleral, even if they had given the meshwork as a confusing point, uveoscleral is not a part of the trabecular outflow. Okay, rest all are the part. So the correct answer is 1, 3 and 4. The corneoscleral, juxtagranular and the uveal meshwork, these are the parts of the trabeculum. So this is something that we have done in our class. This is the diagram from the class itself. So there is a trabecular outflow and then there is a uveoscleral outflow. What are these three parts? These are the parts of the trabeculum. Okay, so if you just imagine that this is the part and this is the trabeculum. Okay, the part that is facing towards the uvea, this is the uveal part. The part which is going from the cornea to sclera, that is the corneoscleral. That is the second part, corneoscleral. And the part which is just besides the canal, that is the Schlemm's canal, that is the juxta is besides, canalicular, that is the canal, juxtacanalicular. So these are the three parts of the trabeculum. Okay, this is something that we have done in the detailed lectures. So this is the parts of the trabecular meshwork. It is uveoscleral is definitely not a part of the trabecular outflow. So that is how you could have answered this easily if you remembered that there are two parts. One is the conventional outflow, the other is the uveoscleral outflow. This we have done in the class. So this was also a question which could have been easily answered. These were the questions I asked. Next was this question, where they asked, a patient presents the characteristic findings shown in the image below. What is the most likely diagnosis? So they had given you an iris finding, one lid finding, and one skin finding, derma finding. So if you remember this from a dermatology also and from the PPT that I shared on nodules, various nodules are there, Basaka's nodules, Kopes nodules. They I had shown you that these are the leash nodules. And this is the skin neurofibroma, the lid neurofibroma. Okay, that is the lesion. And these are the cafe olate spots. So these are all found in neurofibromatosis type 1. In tuberous sclerosis and in von Hippel-Lindau, you get the retinal angiomas. Retinal findings are there. There are no iris findings in these conditions. Okay, and in Sturge-Weber syndrome, the characteristic is the Port-Weinstein. These all diseases, they come under the diagnosis of phacomatoses. These are all the lesions of phacomatoses. So if you just remembered your leash nodules, that is something which you had done, and you remember that it is found in neurofibromatosis type 1, you could have answered this one also. And I hope you were taught in your derma also that cafe olate spots are there. So if you see the von Recklinghausen disease, it presents with leash nodules, neurofibroma, skin lesions, cafe olate spots. These are the findings which are there. And then there is optic nerve glioma. This also we have done, but here the patient is not present. They have not given a history of the vision loss. Okay? The patient presents with early vision loss, and proptosis is a late feature. So optic nerve glioma can also be a component of the neurofibromatosis or von Recklinghausen disease. Okay? So if you just remember the leash nodules, you could have answered this question also. Go on to the next question. Question number 5. Now this was the question which was absolutely not acceptable. Even the third year PGs, those who are appearing for their exam, they just memorize this as a magnification factor just before the exam for the spotter. And immediately after the exam, it is very logical for them also to forget. Even I had to look up. Okay. One thing that was there was that the lower the number, the higher the magnification. And the higher the number, the lower the magnification. That was the clue that you could have found. But anybody, any faculty I can vouch, will not be able to remember this. This is a simple factual question. And magnification, how is that going to help any undergraduate? Learning the magnification factors, they were written like X was written there. How could have they remembered? Nobody could have remembered. And these are not the only lenses. These are the lenses like 60D, 70D, 90D. These are not the only lenses. This is the screenshot from the site of the Vogue company itself. So these are some of the lenses, 60 diopter, 70 diopter, 90 diopter, and this is the magnification which is written there. Today you are asking this. Tomorrow you start asking these questions also. Is this any question? Is this any way to ask? And how long can we keep memorizing in the era of artificial intelligence? How do you expect somebody to remember these factual questions? It is not. And how does it? They could have asked what is the image, where it is used. Like if they could have asked that this is used in the gonioscopy, okay, and this is used in slit lamp biomicroscopy, they could have answered something else. So if you are asked application, that makes sense, but asking factual questions does not make any sense. So the correct answer was this only, that higher the magnification, and Goldman is 1.27, 90 is 0.8D. This is the correct answer. If you wish to look up, you can look up this slide. You can find these written there, 1.15, 0.93, 0.76. These are the options which are there. Moving on to the next question. Now, this was a very interesting question. Hyperpolarization induced transduction is seen in which sensory pathway? We have done this in our class, that whenever there is the stimulus, there is hyperpolarization because of closure of the sodium channels, and this hyperpolarization results in the glutamate release, which is turned off. This is the diagram from the class itself. We have done this in our class. So on this diagram itself, they asked two questions. One was this: hyperpolarization is seen in which pathway? In all the others, we see depolarization. Only in the visual, you see the hyperpolarization, that is seen. Okay. And in the second question, which was coming on the same slide and the same diagram, was this: that a person is kept in a dark room for a long time. Which of the following changes is not observed? When somebody is in the dark, we know that the pupil dilates. This is the reason for angle closure glaucoma. Okay. Eyes become more sensitive to light. Yes, you are able to see better. That is also correct. Okay. Retinal opsin changes to photopigment. Yes, the opsin binds to the protein. See, the opsin binds to the protein, retinal, and it becomes the photopigment. Okay, opsin is a protein and pigment is there. So they become the photopigment. That is there. Why would a pigment change to vitamin A? It will not go reverse. That is not there. So these three would be seen, and this is the correct answer. Retinal pigment will not change to vitamin A. So if you remember this diagram and you used simple common sense, but I know it is difficult to remain calm in the exam, especially with ophthalmology being a difficult subject. So if you got this right, it was okay. If not, I believe out of the 7 questions, at least 3 to 4 were doable. Okay, so 3 to 4 were doable. If you got 5, that is very good. If you were doing beyond 5, you are exceptional. If you got the aptitude question, if you got the magnification question right, then you are exceptional. You definitely deserve to clear the exam. This was the recall from my side. All the best, and thank you, heartfelt thank you to all the students who contributed to this recall. All the best for your upcoming other exams.